Hi guys, I'm Dan and this is Modern Money Revolution, the YouTube channel where I talk about Bitcoin, finance, and the economy so that you can learn about the things that you need to know about in order to be financially successful. If you're new here, welcome. I'm glad to have you as a viewer. And if you're already a fan of the channel, welcome back. I think you're gonna really like today's video. But first, go ahead and please hit the subscribe button below so that you can stay up to date with all the videos that I put out. So, one of the most popular questions about Bitcoin that I get almost every day is something along the lines of, where do all the Bitcoins come from? Or how are all the Bitcoins made? So right now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna answer that very important question of, where do all the Bitcoins come from? This is actually a very important question and really highlights a couple of the things that make Bitcoin special. First, its predetermined monetary policy, and second, the fairness of its issuance. Additionally, I'm going to compare the process of how Bitcoin's made with how traditional fiat money is made to help you be able to understand the differences and decide for yourself whether Bitcoin is something that you think has a lot of potential. The first thing that you have to understand when answering the question, how are Bitcoins made, is that the entirety of Bitcoin's transaction history is broken down into tiny little chunks called blocks. And these blocks are linked together in a chronological order into what's known as a blockchain. To reiterate, the Bitcoin blockchain is made up of every single Bitcoin transaction that has ever taken place. And those transactions are broken up into blocks that represent the transactions that are made during any particular span of time. Typically, one block amounts to approximately 10 minutes worth of transactions. Right now, there's millions of computer nodes known as miners that are competing to be able to add the next block of transactions to the blockchain. And when I say competing, what I specifically mean is that they're all trying to be the first to solve a special cryptographic puzzle, which you can kind of think of like a riddle for computers that was inscribed in the most recent block. And the reason why they're competing to do this is simple. It's because the miner that gets to add a specific block onto the blockchain gets a big reward. This reward comes in two parts. First, they get to collect all of the tips and fees that were generated on all of the transactions in that block. And second, they get to issue themselves a specific and predetermined amount of new Bitcoin. Basically, they get to create new Bitcoin out of thin air. When Bitcoin started on January 3rd, 2009, the miner that added the first block was rewarded with exactly 50 Bitcoin, which at the time of recording this is approximately $1 million, so good for that miner. But more importantly, it meant that the total amount of Bitcoin in existence at that particular time was exactly 50 Bitcoin. Then, 10 minutes later, the next miner solved the next cryptographic puzzle and was rewarded with an additional 50 Bitcoin, putting the total existing Bitcoin supply at exactly 100 Bitcoin. This continued for about 4 years, or exactly 210,000 blocks, at which point something very special happened known as the halvening. So there's a very specific part of the Bitcoin protocol that cuts the reward for solving the cryptographic puzzles in half every 210,000 blocks. So on block 210,001, the reward was now 25 Bitcoin, and the total Bitcoin in existence increased by 25, from 10,500,000 to 10,500,025. These Bitcoin halvenings are both arbitrary and final, and make the new Bitcoin issuance both extremely predictable and also fair, because they can be issued to any miner that solves the cryptographic puzzle. As you can see in this Bitcoin supply chart, Bitcoin is getting exponentially harder and harder to create. In fact, half of all the Bitcoins that will ever be in existence were mined in the first 4 years of Bitcoin's life cycle. And we've already mined over 18.5 million out of the 21 million Bitcoin that will eventually ever be mined. So let's recap the main points. 1, Bitcoin is created when miners add new blocks to the blockchain. 2, the amount that they get is set and predetermined. And 3, Bitcoin becomes exponentially harder to mine as time goes on. Now that you know where Bitcoins come from, let's talk for a second about why it matters and how it compares to traditional fiat money. Fiat money, like the US dollar or the British pound, aren't backed by any commodity or resource, so the central banks have the ability to create literally as much money as they want. And they take advantage of this power. Every year, billions or trillions of new fiat money gets created and pushed into the economy. The CARES Act alone added $2.2 trillion to the US economy. The argument for central banks having and using this power is that a lot of economists will tell you it allows for stimuluses to help prevent economic recessions. The counter argument is that a lot of people view these economic stimuluses as sort of a drug, creating what can be described as an artificial economic high. And after the economy gets these artificial highs, they tend to get what can, in this case, be thought of as an economic hangover or inflation. This video really isn't about litigating whether or not governments having the ability to print however much money they see fit is a good thing or bad thing. But it is important that you understand how clearly Bitcoin is differentiated in this regard. Because with Bitcoin, they cannot decide to print more Bitcoin for any particular reason. It has to be on the set and predetermined schedule that it is on. So there you go. Now you should have a basic understanding of where all the Bitcoins come from and be able to compare that with where your dollars come from too. That was my video. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please go ahead and click the like button and make sure that you're subscribed. It really helps out with the YouTube algorithm so that more people like you can enjoy my videos. And if you have a question that you'd like answered, please write a comment down below. I read every comment and they help me decide what videos to make next. Take care.